Hey everyone, I'm Lincoln Parks. Welcome to the I'm Local podcast. In a world where big corporations dominate the market, it's easy to forget about the unique and vibrant businesses that make our communities thrive. That's why I created the I'm Local podcast, a podcast dedicated to showcasing the incredible stories and contributions of local businesses just like yours. Each episode, I'll be diving into the heart and soul of a different local business. We'll hear from the passionate entrepreneurs behind the scenes as they share their personal journeys, their business philosophies, and the challenges and triumphs that make ownership so rewarding. Whether you're a longtime resident looking to rediscover the hidden gems in our own backyard, or an aspiring entrepreneur seeking inspiration and guidance, I'm Local is here to connect you with the stories that matter most. So buckle up, get ready to be inspired, and join me as we explore the fascinating world of local businesses on I'm Local. Hey guys, and welcome to the I'm Local podcast. On today's podcast, I am excited because I'm talking to an old friend of mine, Lori Harris. Lori, welcome to the I'm Local podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. So Lori, I know we've known each other for quite some time, and a lot of people know you in the community in Henry County. So those people that don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about you being in Henry County.
Okay. So I am Lori Harris. My company now is Superpowers for Good. And let's see, I moved to Henry County in 2000 and went to work for our World at Hope Park. I was with them for 10 years. We did a lot of stuff. The playground, if you're not familiar with it, at Big Springs is a $500,000 playground that we raised the money for. We got it installed. We donated it to the city of McDonough. And that was one of the things that we just loved. And then somebody came to me one day and said, hey, let's start a special needs school. There isn't one in Henry County. So I talked to my board and we did. And, as you know, I'm no longer at our World School. I've since left about 2 years ago. And now I'm working with developmental visual learning. We do education, we do training, we work clinically with kids and adults with ADHD, ADD, oppositionally defiant disorder, some autism kids, and anybody with any kind of learning struggles. And we do that by helping them balance their visual system and learn how to do different thinking strategies. And those strategies actually match up with the neurological development both of growing up and brain maturation. And so that's what we do now. I love it. It's great. And it's exciting to see these kids go from struggling learners to successful learners. So it's so fun.
Yeah, I mean, that is so, it's so interesting in what you're doing. And look, I don't understand any of it. But I know it's great, and I know what you're doing. When I saw the name, Superpowers for Good. So talk a little bit about that. Like, where did that name come from? I mean, it's so cool.
So that's a little bit of a long story. My son went through this program in another state, but my daughter Mackenzie, I know you have a Mackenzie. My daughter Mackenzie has always been this really big person inside, right? She's so big. And she was always just, I want to grow up faster. I want to do this. I want to do that. And, we would take her to the beach and she wouldn't know anybody. And 5 minutes later, she's got everybody like on her team trying to save the sandcastle, right? Yeah. It was good moments, right? The ones that weren't so good is when she very early on kind of bucked the system, right? Because we didn't know it, but she had ADHD. And we just never, Hunter was so much different than her, and actually we could see his learning struggles. So we never did know, I know now what to look for, but at that point we didn't. And so we would just tell her, well, at first we just would say, you're going to be big someday, but not yet, like not yet. And we hated telling her that. And so finally we just kept saying to her, use your superpowers for good. And instead of, and then my grandson, Mikey, he's our first grandson. We actually have 6 grandkids, but Mikey, my husband always called him short fat guy, because when you're little, you're short and you're kind of chubby, and it's a short fat guy. And So we would just call them SFG, superpowers. So SFG. And every time we had a grandkid, they became shorter, fatter guy, short, fat girl. We can't call our teenage grandkids fat. And, it's like,
Right.
and that's when we're fat, but it's still like you have to be careful with that. So it's always been SFG. And so it just kind of worked out. We were sitting in a hotel room. We had gone away for the weekend, and my husband and I were talking about it. And I said, I really like Superpowers for Good. And he's like, yeah, that's great because it's SFG. And so everything just kind of centered around that. And that's what we came up with.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty cool story. And yes, I do know Mackenzie, both are Mackenzies, and, and your daughter is phenomenal. I mean, she is such a phenomenal person, and just the short time that we were able to work with her at that time. So, okay, so for a parent that's really, maybe they're just getting started. Maybe they see some signs, but they don't know anything about ADHD, or they don't know anything. So what are some typical signs, or something that a parent could kind of look at and say, I may need to explore this a little bit further?
Yeah. So a kid that's overactive all the time, they can't sit in their seat. They don't wait to enter. They interrupt. They don't wait their turn. They're struggling with learning in school. They're having problems with behavior. There are so many, and I can send you a list. I don't know if your podcast puts a little link down there or not, but there's a list of things. And when you see those, some of that is typically, it's typical development, right? So every human being develops the same way. And you start in utero with your primitive reflexes. And the first one is balance, right? So if your child is not in the natural birthing position, head down, when they're born, we already know there's a delay in the development. And I always try to be careful. Developmental delay puts these really bad feelings in people's heads sometimes, but they're delayed. Their development is delayed. They should already be head down. So you get through these infantile movement reflexes, and then you go to movement touch. So that's when the kid's crawling around, starting to walk around, like touching everything, like putting fingerprints on your wall, right? And then they move to auditory verbal, right? That's when they start to talk and they're starting to hear and they can take instructions. And then finally they move to visual. Now, instead of touching everything, they're touching 1,000 things with their eyes, but they don't have to touch things. So again, if your kid has to, if past about 2 or 3, if your kid's still touching everything, you can go, hey, maybe I'll keep an eye on that. And then you finally get to visual dominance. And when you get to visual dominance, that's when you're ready to learn in the way that humans are supposed to learn, not orally, not through movement and touch. They're supposed to learn visually. If you can integrate all 3 of those, that's great. That's better. We work on all 3 of those hierarchies to make sure that their learning is deeper.
Okay.
But it really, we follow that visual development. And if you notice that all of a sudden your kid's like talking to themselves, they're having to use auditory to learn anything, that's a real good sign that they've got ADHD or ADD, or actually anything that's a deflect on the right side.
So let me ask you this. So, okay, with that, I know a lot of, I don't know a lot of, but you just hear about it. So a kid's diagnosed with ADHD or, ADD or any of the above, and they go to the doctor, and the doctor prescribes them a, prescription or something like that to control that. What are your thoughts in that area?
Oh boy, I'm glad you asked me that. So I may be an unpopular person after I get done with this particular part, but let me explain what happens with the visual system, and then we can get to the medicine. It's because you're going to need the back. Okay. So 80% of everything that comes into our brain is visual. It comes through the visual system. So the other 20% is smell, touch, taste, hear, right? That's not a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make this real easy. I'm going to use as many layman terms as I can because it'll be easier. So it comes in through your eyes, and it makes its way. It's got a pathway through the brain, but it comes to the occipital lobe in the back, and it works its way forward, either through the left side or the right side. The left side goes through Broca's area of communication before it gets to the prefrontal cortex. The right side goes up and over through the superior parietal lobe, which is space and time, before it gets to the prefrontal cortex. When everything's working properly, we create imagery, and imagery is the moment of knowing. So if I took a brown bag and you had to stick your hand in it and figure out what was in that brown bag, you would go, oh, it's an apple. And you would know it's an apple the second that you saw it in your brain. You created that imagery. Now you know, you pull it out, it's an apple. You don't care what color it is, it's an apple. Okay.
Right.
So your left side comes through here, your central vision. It's color and it's detail. It's the what, it's the particulate. The left or the right side comes through your periphery, and your periphery is big picture, black and white, and motion. Okay, it's your depth perception, it's motion, it's how you see things coming at you in the world. So when you have that happening and you have the kid just not getting it, right? They're not moving through space and time. They're running and tripping on their own 2 feet. They can't catch a ball. It hits them in the face. We know they're neglecting this side of their brain. And when I say neglect, Lincoln, what I really mean is their attention to those streams is being neglected, right? So kids with ADHD are neglecting this part, the right side. Kids with autism are neglecting the left side. And so, and that's the only one on the left side is autism. And the reason I say that, and I say nonverbal autism, is because in order to use Broca's area of communication, you have to be able to engage your central field. And a lot of these kids don't. You'll notice they're like looking off at the side. They're flapping to stay out there. They don't want to deal with the sensory complexity of the central field, usually because they start, it could be anything, might be double vision at first. And then really quickly, they figure out that if you just move to the left or the right a little bit, it goes away. And they don't want to go back.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but when I get double vision, I'm not happy. No. But one of the things we can do to kind of illustrate that is you can put one finger on this way, right? Like one finger right here and like one finger right here. And I want you can go ahead and try it.
Okay. One here.
Yep. Okay. So they're not very far away. You got one closer to your nose, about 6 inches out, maybe. And then one up 6 inches past that, maybe 7 or 8. Okay. And what I want you to do is focus on your near fingertip and tell me how many of your further away fingers you see.
Since I have it like pointing, if I'm focusing on my near fingertip, I can see maybe 2.
Yeah, you see 2, right? We created on purpose double vision. Now, if you take, and you might want to watch me just for a second. If you take this outside finger and you just, still looking at this one, right? And you see 2, and you just move it a little bit to the left. Tell me when you see 1.
Okay, focusing on this. Move it to the left. Okay, I can see 1 right now.
Okay, so we just showed you what a convergence problem is, a convergence insufficiency. And so when kids get this convergence insufficiency, what they do, anybody, is they just figure out really quickly, because your brain is the most powerful tool you have, just a little bit to the left, all of a sudden they can see 1. But that then becomes their periphery, and their periphery goes to the right side of the brain. It doesn't go through the left side of the brain. So they're stifling the left side of the brain, which they're not attending to the left side of the brain, and they give up language. And so we work on games. Everything we do is through games. So we work on games to get them to learn how to attend to the left side, and that's how we get success with language with people who are nonverbal.
Wow. Man, that's amazing. I mean, it's because I didn't even know that. I mean, I had no idea, that would be why maybe they're not giving you eye contact or whatever it is, like you said, because of the double vision and that kind of, I had no idea. I mean, that is very, very interesting.
And the crazy thing about it is that double vision could last 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Our brains are so ready to compensate for whatever happens that they can neglect it very quickly, figure out it works. And even when they come back, they don't have double vision anymore or anything like that, because that's not the only thing that can do that. But they've already done it. And the more they use it, the more they embed it. So it's just a really, there you go. That's my secret to success for children that we with autism.
I know that's great stuff. So working with you, if people are, they want to work with you, are they once you start developing these different aspects that you're adding on and layering on, does this decrease the ADHD, the autism, or is it always there, but they know how to control it now? So, working with you, how does that work?
Question. And I'm going to stay away from autism because that's just such a
right,
such a huge topic, right? So
yeah.
So yeah, we can help them. We can help them get their voice back for sure. And beyond that, I'm not going to speak to autism.
Absolutely, that's fine.
But ADHD. Somebody asked me yesterday if I could cure her from ADHD. She's an adult.
Right.
She's coming in for an assessment. Can you cure me? And I always say to people, define cure, because with the brain, can we get rid of those symptoms? Yes, we can. Can we fix you for life? Yes, we can. However, there's always a however. How your brain works when you're creating neural pathways between one synapse and the other, it's kind of like when you build a new habit. And it's kind of like walking through the woods, right? But it's pretty dense, but you're walking through, you're trudging through it, you're kind of making a path. And then you decide, oh, I really like the creek at the end of this path, so I'm going to go back there tomorrow. And you trudge through, and then pretty soon you got like a little path. But then you want to take your friends, and so you go down there, and now you've got a bigger pathway, and then a bigger pathway, and a bigger pathway, and then finally you pave it, and then it's a 2-lane, and then it's a 6-lane, it's a super highway. And that super highway becomes your default mechanism, your default go-to, right? You're going to just go to that. So how people drive, they show up places and they're like, how did I even get here? I wasn't paying attention.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You've trained it. So your brain knows what to do. So the problem with that is that once a neural pathway is actually created, it doesn't ever go away. And so what we're doing is we're teaching people, here's your new super pathway. And when that happens and you're not taking care of this super pathway, like anything, it erodes, it atrophies, and it goes down. However, years later, if you decide, oh, I'm awesome, I don't have to practice this stuff anymore, I don't have to live this way, you get stressed, you get sick, all these things can happen, but mostly it's like, you're closing in and you allow it, that neural pathway will bubble back up. And if you use that neural pathway and allow it to bubble back up, then the other one will go away. It's kind of like, that's why alcoholics who drink stop and then pick up another drink lose so quickly, because they allow that neural pathway to come back up. And so they've neglected the other one. And so, can I cure people? No, you can cure yourself. Like, you can make sure you do that again.
That's awesome. I thank you for sharing that, because that, that's something that I always wanted to find out, and I'm sure other people did as well. So Lori, in wrapping up our conversation, how can people get in contact with you? I mean, they listen to this, they saw it, and they're like, okay, yeah, I've identified something in my kid, or like you said, as an adult or whatever, teenager. Like, how do they get in contact with you? What's the next step?
So I'm really easy to reach. Superpowers is my website. They can like us on Facebook, Superpowers for Good. And my email is Lori, Lori, at Superpowers. And my cell phone number it's been my cell phone number for years. A lot of people in Henry County already have it. But it's 2. And I am that person that I will answer the phone if I am not with another person. If I'm with another person, you're not going to hear from me. But
full attention.
But you're going to get a call back from me very quickly, especially if you say, hey, I've got this kid and we really need help. So that's
gotcha. Awesome. So last question. Okay, so I know you've been in Henry County, live in Henry County. I always ask this question: is there a local spot, local place, anything like that you and your family kind of frequent and say, this is our local spot?
Food or for
food? And it could be anything, really, anything, just your local spot.
So my local spot happens to be my tiki bar out by my pool. I really like that. But
Awesome.
but we do love Pasta Max.
Pasta Max, yes, you can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with Pasta Max at all.
Pasta Max, they have really good biscuits. So we love just heading down to the square and walking around and seeing people. So Pasta Max, Crust and Craft, they're all really great. We love Keith at Georgia Gallery. He's awesome. We just kind of head around and do those things.
Awesome. So, Lori, I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing just a tidbit, of what you're doing now. And I'm intrigued, guys. If you're listening to this, you're watching this podcast, I urge you something's going on, and you've identified some signals that you see there, or you may not even be sure. Give Lori a call. Go to her website, support her in what she's doing here, because there's such a great need. And a lot of people just don't talk about it. It's something that's not really shared or talked about, as much. People may be embarrassed or whatever it is. But look, this is the opportunity that we have someone that's right here in Henry County that can help us out with, ADHD, autism, ADD, and she is actually a superhero. So, Lori, thank you for coming on today and just, taking some time to share what you're doing with us. It's valuable and very, very important.
Thank you so much, Lincoln. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.